Welcome to This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm Melissa Batchelor, and today we're going to start a three-part series on Alzheimer's care. So this is part one. We're going to be talking to you about 3 tips for transferring and getting dressed. In part 2, I'll talk about how to shampoo hair while someone's sitting in a chair. And in part 3, I'll share 3 tips for eating and drinking at home. So this past summer, I went home to help my 70-year-old mother take care of my 91-year-old grandmother. And she'd been in the nursing home for about a year and a half and had basically been in her room by herself for all of that time, had gotten really, really debilitated. When your loved one is as debilitated as my grandmother was coming out of the nursing home, you can't move her from place to place very easily. So she can no longer walk. So she sits in a wheelchair and had been sitting in her wheelchair since she got to the nursing home when COVID started. So tip number 1 is to consolidate movement to minimize your risk of injury. And when someone can only bear their own body weight, like my grandmother, I could help her to stand, but she wasn't able to pick her feet up to move even to pivot. So that means, she's going to need a lot of support when she stands up. So thinking through, like if she needed to go from her bed to the wheelchair or to her bedside commode, how do we need to organize that so that we weren't doing 6 different movements to accomplish one thing? And so I really had to talk to my mom about some of her expectations for care, and saying that, if we can transfer her to a chair and that chair reclines, that might be a little bit easier than trying to get her up and move her to a wheelchair, and then wheel her back to her bedroom, if she's only going to sleep for like an hour or so. So trying to do as many consolidate activities. So if she was on her bedside commode and we were going to put her into bed for the night, we just went ahead and dressed her while she was there until we could get her into the bed. So, and then also in trying to help her lie back down, putting my arms behind her shoulder and my hand under her knees so that I could kind of move her in one movement to get her to lie down at night. Tip number 2 is to use a hospital bed and to remember that it goes up. So I was watching my mom try to do something, and it was obvious that it was starting to hurt her back. And I was like, Mom, you need to raise this bed up. So once we did that, we also had side rails that we could put up, and then we could roll my grandmother from side to side to do some of the different care activities. So that's tip 3 is, to realize that once somebody is in the bed, if they can roll side to side, that we could, get her brief on that way, and get her into her night clothes pretty easily. So those are just 3 tips for helping someone to transfer and to get into the bed at night. And this podcast is part of a 3-part series on Alzheimer's care. So check out parts 2 and 3. And don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section if you have other questions related to caring for someone living with Alzheimer's disease. Thank you for tuning in to This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor. And if you'd like to learn more, you can check out my other episodes on my YouTube channel by subscribing and ringing the bell to get immediate notifications when new content comes out. In addition, you can also find the audio version of the podcast on Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. Please feel free to leave an honest review because more reviews mean more awareness of the podcast and helps us move towards an age-friendly world. If you have a comment or a question, you can visit my website, melissabphd.com. Go to the Contact Melissa tab, and you can leave me a voice message. You never know, it might just include your question or your comment in an upcoming episode.